Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings. Welcome to the show. Thanks for calling in the show early, Albert. There'll be a few more callers in a few minutes. So we had a crisis on our hands. Albert, I'm going to pull you in a minute. We've had a crisis in our hand in the last few days on TV. The most noticeable thing is that there seemed to be a rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, home of one of the prominent universities in that state. And an alt-right rally called Unite the Right was conducted. And during the day yesterday, a lone Ohio man took his Dodge and drove it through the crowd, apparently intensifying the situation, injuring 19 people and killing a 32-year-old woman. I'll get her name in a second. There are several questions that involve this type of display of hatred. One is whether they were protesting the demolishment Confederate icons in the community. My question is do they want and do they believe in a separatist state, meaning segregation again? Do they believe in racial superiority? And how do they plan to achieve that under the auspices of government as it currently stands, where people have protected rights to equal access to education? Affirmative action is somewhat repealed, but society as a whole has embraced it. It's only a fringe group that has not. I do have callers calling in tonight. I know Ben and Donna are calling in. I don't know Don is still on probation, John. But I did not, one thing I do not know, because I had to work 51 hours the last 3 days, is what the nature of the group is. So I'm just going to pull in Albert and see what he knows. Good evening, Albert. How are you doing tonight? It's just us two so far.
Gotcha. Well, it's the 5th time this year it happened, you know? It's become popular now, you know? I mean, like,
you mean where these types of clashes happen, or where people attack people?
Protesters getting run over. It happened the 5th time this year. It just becomes popular. It's become popular now, you know? It's like, you know.
Well, I wasn't familiar that it happened 5 times.
Well, it happened I lost track, but I think about 4 or 5 times, somewhere around there. But yeah, it's been happening a lot within the year, you know. I don't mean this year, like only, you know, 2016. 2017.
I know what
which is the year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about like.
So my question is
like 12 months, you know, within 12 months. But yeah, it's been happening a lot, you know. I mean, a lot. You know, back in 2000 or 2005, you know, if I would have seen that, I'd be like, wow, I've never seen that before. Wow, that's incredible. You know, now I see that, it's like, okay, you know, it's just another one, you know. And my best estimate is, I bet you within 2 or 3 months it'll happen again, because it's just something now that's very common for some reason now, you know. And it's always, you know, it's always some lone wolf or somebody that just, you know, like, you know, he just did it, you know, for some odd reasons, and you know, he's got no connection to, you know, to the CIA or Al Qaeda or anybody. He's just, you know, like, it just, I mean, you can never prove anything. So he's just always, there's always somebody running over, and you know, in my personal opinion, you know, I think that maybe it's an organized or some kind of, to kind of scare the protesters not to come out and protest. I mean, the more it testify, the more they go out and kill protesters. You know, they bombed protesters before, you know, with pipe bombs, and now running over cars. And what's next for the protesters? You know, they're always getting killed out there just for protesting. And it's going to become a new law that it's so dangerous out there to protest now. You can't even speak your mind anymore. You know, and I think that's a form. That's the most extreme form of terrorism, and not allowing somebody to speak.
Thank you. I was reading an article about a restaurant owner in Charlottesville who closed his restaurant Saturday, and then this morning he was kind of taken aback because he was against the alt-right group, and then 5 of them sat down in his restaurant, and then he was trying to like weigh the situation to see if he should kick them out or not. But up to the point where I read, they hadn't done anything radical, so I think the waitress said, let him just eat here. But apparently this ultra-right group who planned the rally, Unite the Right, they come from a crossbreed of those types of people, and I guess they have their own language, their own Nazi language with symbolism, and they have the function of the group that says that America belongs to white people. And I don't know if you saw the David Duke being interviewed. He was the head of the KKK for years. He actually kind of looks like a skinny, sallow-cheeked Donald Trump himself. But he said that he was giving off waves of conversation saying that Donald Trump's platform was to take back America, which means put it back into the hands of white people, is what he was alluding to without fully saying it. But I don't know, it's just kind of scary that it's one thing for people to think that their race, the majority, has entitlements. Like, in my perspective, it seems like they have this false philosophy that there's X number of jobs out there, there's X number of possibilities, and that there's a certain percentage of minorities that are stealing it from them. It's kind of like a fear factor. But who knows where they're really coming from? And because I had to work so much this week and I didn't have a chance to delve into their philosophy. But I don't even know what the name of the group is. I think it's a loose federation of white nationalist groups that showed up at this thing. Did you have a chance to look in on RT News or anything this weekend?
Yeah, I just watched a short video, basically what you just said. You know what I mean? You just said it already. You know, I watched the video, and that's what he said about Donald Trump and whatnot. You know, and just I just saw the basics, just that video. And from my perspective, I guess, form of view, my opinion, you know, because yeah, just like you said, yeah, there are people that, you know, they want entitlement. They think they're entitled to, you know, whatnot, or maybe everything, who knows what. But there are people that think they're entitled and, you know, go out there and protest, or go out there and say something about it and form a group and whatnot. But that's just a small percentage. I mean, that's just a small group right there. I mean, think about all of the other people that think they're entitled to you know, something, but they don't go out there and protest. They're not organized or anything. Those protesters just account for a really small percentage, you know. So there's other, you know, and I'm not, you know, it doesn't sound.
I mentioned that on Twitter. Do you have a Twitter account, right? Because if you look at about 30%, like let's say you click on hashtag Charlottesville, about 30% of the posts are alt-left and alt-right groups blaming each other for this, and like trying to interlope Obama and Trump's names into the conversation. And I wrote something to the effect is, instead of blaming the opposite side for what you hate or don't approve of, why don't you talk about the 70% of Americans who say nothing? I just don't like how people, like, let's say I'm a lefty and I'm trying to promote my viewpoint by dissing Trump. Like, can't people stand up on their own philosophy and make their own observations without always having to pull in national political figures to make their point? And I just wanted to throw in one more thing. Jeff Sessions, who's normally kind of a, you know, neutral right guy, he's Trump's attorney general. He did make a adequate statement, I believe, for this situation. He said, "The violence and deaths in Charlottesville strike at the heart of American law and justice. When such actions arise from racial bigotry and hatred, they betray our core values and cannot be tolerated." And really, it goes down to the rule of law. Like, how can these types of, I know everybody knows that these types of evil groups have the right to petition for First Amendment rights and petition to have public rallies, but they were barking out anti-Semitic chants. They were openly displaying symbols of Nazi Germany and promoting secessionism in the South. So it's just kind of weird that this type of power reserves or power promotion exists. Like, is it because Trump won and they feel more comfortable coming out, or have they always existed there? What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what. You know, from what I've seen from independent amateur videos, and I see these group protesters, and they're coming up in nice cars, you know. I mean, you got BMW, Mercedes-Benz, brand new cars, you know. And if I see a protester, like, you know, comes over there and like in a $100,000 car and goes out there to protest, I'm not gonna give him any of my value, like moral value. I'm not gonna listen to what he has to say. I'm not gonna care. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? If you're you know, taking all the advantage already that you have, you know, like say if you're wealthy, right? If you're a very, very wealthy man and you're taking all the advantages the country has to offer and you're going out to protest, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It kind of throws, I mean, for me, it's like, nah, I don't care what you have to say. I mean, you know what I mean? You already have it going on, you know, so that's what I would, you know, in my own opinion.
Well, I wanted to point something out as you, because one observation that people have made over the last 2 to 3 decades is it's not always a coalition of white, well-to-do men who are doing this type of activity. It's usually a disenfranchised group of outlaws. Like, For example, the restaurant owner who didn't want to serve the racist people, he noticed that a lot of them had prison tattoos on their arms, and they were like a disenfranchised group of people that aren't really part of the mainstream. These are not pillars of the community. They're more like outlaws. And I'll just read a quote quick because we have some time to kill before Ben and Don join. Matthew Heimbach, founder of a nationalist front, a neo-Nazi group that bills itself as umbrella organization for a white nationalist movement, said in an interview Saturday, "We achieved all of our objectives. We showed that our movement is not just online, but growing physically. We asserted ourselves as the voice of white America. We had 0 vehicles damaged, all our people are accounted for, and moved a large amount of men and materials in and out of the area. I think we did an incredibly impressive job." Now, the other thing is did you see, I don't know if you and your mom have CNN or any type of main TV, but I know you watch the internet stuff anyway, but Terry McAuliffe, the governor of Virginia, was very forward. First, he said these these white nationalist groups do not belong in the city, they do not belong in the state, and he said in fact, leave the country. You are not Americans. I wish you were out of this country. Now, for a governor or somebody of that high a stature to say those stronger words, I felt like he was really, I wouldn't say he was sticking his neck out, but he was following his convictions by saying what he wanted to say. Like he wasn't holding back at all.
Right, and you're talking about my internet, and just for quick info, I mean, I have internet on my phone right now, but I don't have home internet. And the thing in California is, the time on the cable, which is Spectrum now, they do offer.
I wasn't criticizing you, by the way.
No, of course not. No, of course not. I'm just letting you know, how the internet works, like just in general for poor people, like, because, in my situation, because here's the thing, I want to tell you a little backstory about my internet. And so here's the backstory.
By the way, Don's on the line, but go ahead and tell the story quick.
Okay, here in California, right, Spectrum, and well, at least in Southern California over here, I don't know the whole California, but Spectrum has the $14.99 economy internet, for low budget, but you have to be accepted for that, and for some people they don't even have to apply. They're already in the location, but I called and they said you're not in the location. I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, there's like crack dealers, and these apartments are really small, and it's like really, it's a really ghetto area, like, okay. And they send me an application, and I send the application back to them, and that was about 2.5 months ago, and it just barely got processed right now. We're like barely on Friday, actually, because I called on Thursday, nothing, and then I called back on Friday because it's been taking forever, and I've been trying to get my internet, and they finally got it processed. And so, for people that can't afford, because right now Spectrum, when it used to be Time Warner Cable, we used to have
Albert,
$30.
there's ways around it. There's ways around it. Can I just explain? If you have AT&T, there's a $2 a day plan, and you can pay $1 a day for the internet. But I work at a company where I just can click the Wi-Fi button and go on Wi-Fi for free as long as I have the password. So it just depends, it just depends if you have a good plan. And if you can't afford it, then you can't afford it. Then you have to go to places like McDonald's for free Wi-Fi.
Well, here these apartments, AT&T doesn't connect everywhere. Like, in certain areas, it might.
I know. I'm just saying you may
doesn't.
Not even have AT&T.
In some areas that Verizon might have the telephone lines, and then Time Warner Cable might have the cable lines. And so if you want to get internet with Time Warner Cable, you got to do internet to the cable. And if you want to get it with Verizon, you got to get to the phone jack. And, you don't have either or option. You're kind of stuck with one or the other. You know what I mean? And sometimes in some areas where you live, you only have, time or cable. That's all you have. It's the only option you have.
Right.
If you live here. If you live here,
I'm kind of screwed too. Well, I pay $120 a month for phone, cable, and internet, but I'm hardly ever home. But I have internet on my phone. It's $1 a day for data. But I was just going to mention one thing. I have to pull Don in now because he's Ubering tonight. Terry McAuliffe, the guy I just mentioned, the governor of Virginia, he used to be the DNC chair. Like, this is way back around, like, probably in 2009 to 2012. So he had that big job before Debbie Wasserman Schultz had it, but he was a much cooler person than her. Like, he wasn't shady. But I'm gonna pull Don in now. Hi, Don. What's cracking? Don Gallimore. Okay, I'll leave Don on hold. He's probably Ubering. But the reason I brought up, Don, you're on the line. The reason I was bringing up Terry McAuliffe is that, so a lot of times, like you say, Albert, that the top framers of the Democratic Party and other people in high positions, a lot of them don't stick their neck out. But in this case, Terry McAuliffe did stick his neck out. Like, he didn't try to mince words. He just went straight for it. And I do want to quote a couple things he says. Hold on a second. Could you talk a minute while I look up his speech?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, like I was saying, the internet, in this area, that's, what's the cheapest internet that I can get in this area. And it took 2.5 months to get it. So, and the thing is, that over here, we used to have, when Time and Cable was Time and Cable, they used to have $30 a month for internet. But now, they only have $30 a month internet if you get the phone and the television. So it's $30 for one thing and the other, all three combined. So it adds up to $90 a month. If you get all of that. But if you only want to get internet, it's $50 a month, and that's all the plans that they have to offer. And you either get that or you get nothing. And so I couldn't afford $50 a month. That's the cheapest they had. For regular internet. And so I did some deep research. But then, the guys that that is called Spectrum now, because Time Warner Cable was not called Spectrum. But anyway, the guys at Spectrum, and they have no idea that they even had internet for $14.99 a month. I actually did some deep research in the internet. So I told them, and they say, well, it's like, no, we don't have it. I was like, no, yes, you do. And I have to argue with the guys, and they have to give me a different phone number. And I actually have to get like 3 different phone numbers until I speak to someone that knew that actually that does exist, and that was correct. And
So how much do you pay for your phone a month? Do you pay for your phone a month?
Oh, for my cell phone, I only pay $30 a month for my cell phone.
Well, that's pretty cheap. Terry McAuliffe said, this is just what he tweeted. At every level, elected officials in America must denounce white supremacy, Nazism, and any rhetoric that empowers those who seek to divide us. Also, I wanted to mention there was a Republican senator from Colorado who said that Trump needed to come out today with the proper rhetoric that this white supremacy group is a hate group and they're also a terrorist group, and he demanded that Trump use those words and that language because people were criticizing Trump, saying that he keeps coming out and talking about ISIS and Islamic groups, but he won't own this this anti-establishment rhetoric on these national groups.
Did you read what Donald Trump tweeted about the protesters that got run over?
No, I only read that he gave sympathy to the family of the victim.
Yeah, something like that. He did do that in the tweet.
He did one tweet about the family and the victim. Why? What? I didn't see what he wrote about that other person. I can look it up right now. I'm in front of the internet.
Yeah, I can't remember what he said exactly. I mean, I did look a couple of days ago, but I don't remember exactly what he said. Kind of not fresh in my mind, but he'd say that he didn't say anything radical or anything awkward like sometimes he says. So he sounded very professional, like he was already preparing, like he already prepared like 2 weeks in advance of what he was going to say.
Well, one thing that we need to point out is that I'm going to read Donald Trump's quote. He wrote, "Condolences to the family of the young woman killed today, and best regards to all those injured in Charlottesville. So sad. Deepest condolences to the family and fellow officers of the Virginia State Police who died today. You're among the best this nation produces." There were 2 cops that got killed in the helicopter, during all this commotion. They were flying above the protest, and apparently something went wrong. They were both in their 40s, and they died. They were law enforcement. But he did come out with strong. In the last 24 hours, there were 2 Virginia. I don't know if they were like arm of the law enforcement. If they were county or state or city, but they were flying in a helicopter, and their helicopter crashed in the woods during this protest. So he also wrote later last night, after people were pressuring him to say more, "We all must be united and condemn all that hate stands for. There is no place for this kind of violence in America. Let's come together as one." So I don't know, just I felt like he at least gave it the old college try, like he put a little more effort than he normally does, like he wasn't riding a fence. But I do feel like the liberals were kind of, the far alt left wing was kind of to blame too for, including CNN itself, for changing up the mix and immediately always going to Donald Trump for as a go-to person for the cause of these types of situations. I mean, let's face it, that guy from Ohio, we don't know what his affiliations were. He was pretty young, and it was his decision to drive through the crowd and try to kill people. I don't think even people in that group probably try to condone that. Do you?
No, but I mean, what would it drive that man to do? I mean, that I'm pretty sure if I look up his records, like the other guys that have previously run over people, protesters, it was pretty, like, I'm pretty sure that he had a job and a wife, and all of a sudden he just decided to ruin his life and go to jail for a long time for assassination, basically. I mean,
I don't think he had a wife, because they interviewed his mother on a local news outlet, and she said that he knew he was going. If he had a wife or girlfriend, they would have interviewed him. But
what kind of car
they interviewed his mother. His name. Here, I'll read the article. James Alex Fields is his name, and he's in his 30s. Oh, he's only 20 years old, for God's sake. He had a silver Dodge Challenger, which is a piece of shit car, by the way. He ran it into a crowd. They didn't say the year of the car, but it was an older car. I saw it on the news.
Was it like somewhere in the 90s or like somewhere around 2000 or something? Or
I think it would be in the 90s, a Dodge Challenger. It's just, I'll try to Google an image of it, but I don't have time to look it up while I'm talking about it. He was charged with one count of second degree.
How much value the car had. If it was a V or a V6,
well,
just
I got
to have an
stop
idea
now
how
and
much
look.
money
It's a Dodge. They don't say what year it was in the article, but let me see what the year of production was, okay?
Because there's Dodge Challengers that cost like $80,000. You know, if you've got like the SRT8, you know what I mean. If you've got a really expensive car and you ran them over, then that's kind of like.
No, it was a cheap, ugly silver one. It was at least 10 years old. But I hate to tell you this. I looked this up. They run anywhere from $1,000 to $25,000. So I don't really know.
Well,
His
yeah, if
was
you're
a
talking
piece
about
of
the
shit.
V6, if you're talking about like a used V6 or maybe, but I'm talking about like the V8s or the Hemi ones with the Hemi. You know, they're different. They're different. You know, depending which one you get. You know, but then again,
well,
you know,
it is kind of an attractive car, but the one that I saw on the news was not. It wasn't sporty, and it wasn't. I'm looking at all the images now on Google of the newer ones. It wasn't sporty.
Yeah.
The one he was.
I don't remember. Did it have 2 doors or 4 doors?
I thought it had 4, but let me look it up.
Okay.
But while I'm doing this, you're gonna have to say something because I'm a one-man show tonight. Just
hey,
a minute.
is Don there?
So keep talking. Don was on the line, but he's not saying anything. I'm gonna hang him up. He'll have to call back in.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened to Ben. He texted me like 5,000 times today. So 1 second, please. Well, some music on for a minute while I look it up. 1 second.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, Albert, it looks like from the picture it's like around a 2014 or a 2015. And it's a 2-door.
2-door or 4-door? 2-door?
It's a 2-door.
Oh, and if it's a 2-door, it's a Dodge. It's a Dodge Challenger. Because the Dodge Charger is the 4-door, and the Dodge Challenger is the 2-door. A lot of people get that mixed up.
Well, I think you know what? I think that one of the reporters got it mixed up. Because I read it on the article. One said Charger. Anyways, he was a 20-year-old child, man who was living up with his mother until 5 or 6 music. Well, I don't really want to talk about the car like forever because I didn't watch all the videotape of the shooting.
That's okay, but I'm just saying that the reporter's not a car guy. I mean, nothing about you. I'm just saying that the reporter's not a car guy. But the Dodge Challenger is more expensive than the Dodge Charger. So it's a sporty car, more expensive.
Okay, from the aerial view on CNN yesterday, it looked like a lousy car. But from the picture that I see in the New York Times, it's a nice car. It's charcoal gray. It's a 2-door. It does have a sporty contour to it, and the front end got completely demolished in the after he drove through those people and protesters. It got totally annihilated. He was a loner child. A neighbor in his neighborhood said that he stuck to himself as a teenager. His father died before he was born. He lived with his mother his whole life and had only moved out the last 5 or 6 months. So apparently,
what was his motive? Did you get any information about his motive?
It doesn't say. No, they didn't interview him because he's probably not talking right now.
Gotcha.
And he's from Kentucky, and they've only been living in Ohio a year. So, I see the back of the car too. It was kind of ruined. But
he ruined his car. I mean, he had a perfectly running car, not even that old. The car wasn't even that old. He had a running car that he could have drove that car to work. He could have drove that car to pick up a girl. I mean, that car is kind of, okay, attractive. I mean, you could pick up girls with that car. I mean, if you make an attempt, and and that car can get him from work to the restaurant, from to the movies, to places, instead of taking a bus, And he ruined his car. He ruined his car, and of course, he
also drove 3 states over. I mean, Ohio's a good 900 miles from Virginia. Maybe not that far, probably around 600. But I noticed in this video that I was watching that the anti-Confederate demonstrators were going into hand-to-hand combat with the white nationalists. Like, they were beating the shit out of each other with fists.
Yeah, but check this out.
So,
if I wanted to hurt protesters, I would want to get away with it, and and be done with it. And I wouldn't want to ruin my car and ruin my life. You know what I mean? Like, a person is not insane.
Well, apparently he didn't give a shit.
I guess it doesn't give a shit. He's crazy in the head, because a normal person will not want to ruin his car and ruin his life. A normal person or let's just say it's just a crazy person, but not crazy enough to like ruin himself, but just ruin somebody else, will want to put like a pipe bomb, or maybe put like some poison in the water or something like that, and then get away with it and hurt the other people he wants to hurt. But this man, he wasn't prepared. He just came over with the car and decided he wanted to ruin his life just so he can ruin the other guys' lives, maybe kill them, or either injure them or kill them. But he was prepared to ruin his life just for that. It's like what kind of you're having a revenge on a complete stranger, like those protesters you ran over. You probably have no idea who the protesters are. He's like, when you hate somebody and you want revenge, like somebody to probably beat you up or torture you and mess with you or something like that, and you want to get after them and have revenge, but just going after random people, and just doing
Don's
it.
back on the line. I wanted to share some information with you, Albert.
I'm almost finished. I'm just saying,
go ahead with your rant.
I get organized terrorists, terrorists. They want to go and hurt people and put a bomb or shoot people in a crowd, because they're getting paid, or they're giving orders to do it. It's an organized terrorist. But the lone wolves are which really catch me by surprise, and they just surprise me every time. They're willing to go isolate like that.
My friend Travis wrote today that from the looks of this rally, Dylan Roof is not a lone wolf, the one who killed all those people in South Carolina 2 to 3 years ago. I want to read something about James, the guy who shot these people, or not shot, but drove them. He was Derek Weimer, his high school teacher, said he was a bright kid but misguided and deluded. He said that as a freshman, he wrote a report for a class that was very much along the party lines of neo-Nazis, that he took it to a whole new level. Like, a lot of kids get interested in Germany and Nazi in high school because they first learn about World War II. Like, they're in awe at the type of craziness that it involves. So he kind of became an advocate for it. And military records show that Mr. Fields entered the Army in August of 2015. He served only 4 months, and then he left active duty. But the press did not know why he, left the military. It must have either been a medical reason or just obedience. John, you're on the line. Can you actually hear us this time?
I can hear you now. I just finished with another ride. It's busy kind of today because everybody's leaving hot on night, which is our big car rally of the year. So our old cars. So we're just finishing that.
You mean like an old car show?
Yep. We're kind of busy.
You're at an old car show?
Yes, we have.
Well, it's just kind of, what's happened to I'm really getting tired of people saying, like, I made a joke with Ben before that I invited Bill Clinton on Twitter to join us, and he was saying stuff like, oh, did he charge you $7,000 for calling in the show? But now he's AWOL. John's AWOL. I want to hear your take on the Charlottesville situation, and apparently this alt-right group is pretty well organized and pretty strong in numbers.
Yeah,
so
the KKK, they apparently hijacked the rally. It was supposed to be just a conservative rally, and so they hijacked it and they made it their own now. So that's what happened there, apparently. But for the most part, No, I was going to say that when you got your own people fighting your own people, that's pretty much kind of a civil war. So that's where we're headed with our president's blessing. And we're looking at now some of the start of what we can, I guess, call a civil war. We've got a rally here in Reno coming tomorrow. Well, we had one today, but one tomorrow that I'm helping put together, and we'll just see what comes up there. But we've had some racist things going on here in the last few days, too. So one car was parked in front of a lady's house who just moved in to one of our areas, suburbs, and they parked the car and with writing on it, KKK and stuff. So it's happening. It's coming out that the ultra right wing is flexing their muscles again now. So that's kind of what I see.
Do you think it's because Donald Trump's in office, or is it just because that they're trying to take these monuments down?
No, it's because Donald Trump's in office. He's giving all of the right wing radicals the opportunity to have a license to do whatever they want, and that's not good. That's not leadership, because we've got to work together. A leader is supposed to bring all the factions together, and he is not doing that at all. He's dividing all of us. You guys there?
I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here.
One moment, please.
Okay, sure. So, Albert, how are you doing?
Can you hear me?
Surviving.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a good thing. I've got one of my best friends has come down with a couple strokes, so I'm concerned about her, and there are other people who are not doing well, and I'm very, very upset over the Clinton prescription pill pricing debacles, and these prescription drugs are killing everyone. I don't get why people are on them.
Talking about
But no, I'm just talking about the military is being funded from the prescription drugs that are killing our own people, and that's a primary concern of mine. Being a dance, fitness, and nutrition business owner, nutrition, of course, and I've always talked about it, is very, very important. But the other side is that you have nutrition in order not to get sick, and people are eating such bad things they're getting sick. So that was just an aside. But in terms of the way people act, part of it is because their hormonal system is not working correctly. Everyone needs to look at their thyroid, their parathyroid, all their adrenal glands. They need to make sure they're functioning properly.
Well, you're getting a little off topic, Don. You're getting a little off topic.
Yes, I am.
I don't really want to go into a health, an infomercial on health.
All right. No prescription drugs. That's all I'm saying. Anyway.
Okay, well, me and Albert were trying to figure out if this James Alex Field, even though he had alt-right connections, if he was part of the core group of people who were organizing this, and if they had any expectation he would do something like this, run over people in the crowd. I think
we were talking about his car too, because
I don't think so.
Kind of has a mediocre car, not a cheap car, because there's really cheap cars that are really shitty. You know, I can talk about like the Toyota Yaris,
you keep talking about his car. Man, the car is the least.
I don't know. I'm just saying
how
much money he has. I'm just literally emphasizing how much money it shows that he has.
Well, he was working.
He doesn't, Albert. He lived with his mother till 5 months ago. They just moved from Kentucky to Ohio less than 12 months ago. He's probably only had a steady job for 6 months at the longest. So
but he was working.
This guy, yeah, he was an outsider. Now, he might have had some online connections because his history teacher in high school said he had those Nazi leanings. But and he might have associated with people who were at the rally, but he certainly wasn't a central figure in the group. I think he was kind of like a loony.
I think you're right. No, I think you're right. I think that he just went off. He decided that he could change the world, and it was up to him. And, you know, Dylan Roof, you mentioned Dylan Roof earlier, and he had the same delusions where he thought he could change the world. But he was proved to be connected with other people, and this guy, he might have had internet connections, but I think he was a lone wolf.
Yeah, another thing I want to point out is that now we all understand because the First Amendment writes that any type of group, whether they're good or bad, they have the right to petition the right to assembly. But Terry McCullough pointed out that some people who came to the rally were armed, and Virginia is not a conceal and carry state. There were several people arrested for carrying arms. So this crazy Ohio driver was only one arrest that day.
Well, remember that he's going to be also charged with the death of 2 police officers. They had the helicopter and that crashed, and it was a direct response to the runovers. So
no, I don't think so, because those people crashed on their own. They were near the woods, and something went wrong with the helicopter.
They were still responding to his mass running over people. So he's responsible he'd be responsible for their crash, whether they were just looking or not.
By the way, Jason Kessler was the name of the organizer for this rally, and he tried to give a speech after the car rammed into those people, but the anti-Confederate demonstrators punched him out, and he was not able to conduct his quasi-press conference that he wanted to conduct. And Jason Kessler had been organizing. One bystander named Jeff Winder said he's been trying to bring hate to our town for months and has been endangering the lives of people of color and others in the community. He said free speech does not protect hate speech.
Especially insightful hate speech. That's a crime.
Well, one thing that Ben said over the text is that I'll have to look it up now. My brain's fried. He said something about this. Oh, he said it was predictable. That event like this in America is predictable. Do you guys agree with that?
When you got two counter groups that are fighting for, and this is again, just like the Civil War, you've got the Union that's fighting for some kind of rights for those who are disenfranchised, and then you've got the other group that believes that they are the owners or controllers of these minority groups. And whenever you've got those two insightful groups, that staring each other down, then there's going to be ultimately something violent that'll happen.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a dodge the bullet American, or like, what do they call when the public's asleep? Like, anyway, in some ways I think this Confederacy issue was raised at a bad time, because in other places like St. Louis and New Orleans, there were what?
There is no bad time. There's no good time. There's no bad time. It's just a time.
Okay, well, Thomas Jefferson founded Charlottesville and the University of Virginia in 1819, and they said that this particular town in Virginia is symbolic of, protections of the Constitution and freedoms, and hate groups really have no place there, even if they have First Amendment rights. Do you agree with that, either one of you?
I agree with what? That the First Amendment rights should protect everyone. If it's done within the bounds of non-anarchist rhetoric. But when you talk about overthrowing the government, overthrowing a section of people, then you're throwing away your First Amendment rights for insightful and the potential for inciting a riot, and that's not good. But I believe that, let's say, Ann Coulter and Colorado, at Stanford, she should have been able to speak. Or I'm sorry, Cal. She should have been able to speak. And other people should be able to speak too. They should not have any constraints as to where they speak their propaganda, if you will, but they do have the right to say it.
I want to bring up a point that you guys might have overlooked when you were following headline news. Mayor Mike Signer of Charlottesville, they had this route staked out, this organizer, Jeff Kessler. Saturday was not the first time that the white nationalists and supremacists had rallied in Charlottesville. In May, Richard Spencer, a prominent white nationalist and a graduate of University of Virginia, led a torchlit rally here, and last month the KKK came from North Carolina. Sensing there might be trouble, the city tried to deny Kessler's group a permit for Emancipation Park, by the way, which I believe where the Robert E. Lee statue is. Officials wanted the gathering in a larger park where they feel they could have better crowd control. But on Friday evening, a judge sided with Kessler. Mayor Signer would later lament on Twitter that it was a fateful turn of events. This is exactly why the city tried to change the venue, he wrote. So apparently, because Black Lives Matter showed up and other groups like showing up for racial justice, they gathered around the First Baptist Church at 8 in the morning. Apparently, this park, Emancipation Park, is rather small, and it didn't accommodate all groups that were organizing versus opposers. But that still didn't lead to predictable circumstances that a 20-year-old would drive his car and plow through the crowd. So that was kind of like the apex of the event. If he hadn't have done that, I think it would have taken on this wouldn't even be national news right now. So, by the way, Ben is not calling in tonight. I don't know why he flaked on us, and I really don't want to do a show for more than 15 more minutes. I'm at work and I'm on a 17-hour shift. So I would like you guys to tell me how. I think maybe somebody might have been turned off by my title of the show. I wrote, "The Klan and like-minded fools can stay under their hoods till their mind is redeemed." Maybe Ben thought my language was too strong.
Wow. I mean, you
know what?
Good at,
don't show your face in public if you got nothing to offer.
But they do have something to offer. They're pushing 100% for blacks to go back home, and they don't have this is our home. So that's, kind of it's a goal that can't be achieved.
Okay, well, I wrote on Twitter today, the South does not know what kind of legacy to preserve, but I said it in a different way. I said they're trying to preserve a segment of their legacy, but what are they trying to preserve? Because it doesn't represent the people as a whole. What's your take on that?
First of all,
like they're obviously in a identity crisis.
Well, first of all, it's not just relegated to the South. You've got the big cities in the North, the Boston, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, in the North that are just completely racist. So we don't have to worry about the South just being the one with the identity area with the identity crisis. The other thing is that we're looking at the fact that the South is going through the identity crisis a lot faster, a lot sooner than the rest of the country. So whatever the South is doing, if they are having an identity crisis, get ready for it to spread countrywide. The South, they have assimilated the racists as well as possible. And the problem there is that you're getting a lot more of the Caribbean peoples, the South American peoples all through there. So they're going through a new catharsis, if you will, a new change.
Well, my question is even if those racial strongholds exist in those northern cities, it's not really relevant to tonight's discussion because they're not out in the open.
Okay, whatever. Chicago's out in the open.
Well, they're not. They're not.
Okay.
Well,
all
Chicago's
right.
a whole different can of worms.
Well,
they're obviously Chicago has they have these they're not called safe houses, but they have these police established houses to arrest people and hold people and kind of like demonize them. So I feel like Chicago's an anomaly in itself. It's not even, it's the most effed up city in the United States right now.
When you consider
Albert, what happened to you?
I'm here. I'm just not much of a talker.
I'm just yeah. It's okay. You were talking a lot in the beginning. Don, if you could sum this up for just this week's event, how would you sum it up?
This week's events in terms of Charlottesville or everywhere, because when Terry McAuliffe, the Virginia governor, and we saw him at he was one of our speakers at our NAACP convention 2 weeks ago. But he's very dynamic. Yeah, he's very dynamic. He tells it like it is. And in a way, he's a younger Joe Biden in a sense. But he would be a very viable Democratic, for those who care about the Democratic Party.
Did you know he was in charge of the DNC 5 years ago or 6?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, before he ran for governor, he had Debbie Wasserman Schultz's job.
Wow, I didn't know that. But
and by the way, Albert, Terry McAuliffe, the governor of Virginia, he made his fortune in cars. He started out like as a handy boy at a car dealership, and then he started making investments with cars and housing and all this other stuff in Virginia. Yeah, Don. When I first heard his voice, I recognized the name because I used to get emails from him all the time when he was the DNC chair. And you're right, okay. He is a straightforward speaker. He said not only do those white supremacists not belong in that city, county, or state, they don't belong in America. He was ready to exile their butts.
Right, and one of the main things is that he was calling out for all the leaders to get together and denounce the car. What do they call it? They call it a car running over. But he wanted the politicians to denounce this, and they haven't done it. The Republican leadership, just a couple of.
Well, there was a Colorado Republican. There was a senator from Colorado named Cory Gardner who used pretty strong language, and he demanded that Trump call these white nationalists a terrorism group rather than a hate group. So there were people coming out from both sides of the aisle on that situation.
They are a terrorist group. They've always been that's why I've been telling you all these many years that the group that we have to worry about are the whites. They're the ones who are the terrorists. They're the ones who have always been prone to violence, and that we have to imprison. They're the ones we have to take off the streets. And I've been telling you for years, and nobody wants to listen. I have no idea why, because the truth hurts, I guess.
I hear ya. Well, my take on the whole situation is I'm kind of in the same camp as Ben when we were talking earlier on email or texting. It doesn't surprise me that this happened, but about 5 weeks ago we did a show on the Confederate legacy, and those statues existing there, yes, it is a symbol of hatred and divide in the Civil War. It was a poignant era in our nation's history. Over 600,000 people died in that war. It's one of the most bloodiest wars of all time, and I think by removing those statues, I can understand why even non-white supremacists are aggrieved that that symbol of history would be removed. But if it's going to be a rallying point for supremacy groups, then, I mean, part of me just wishes it would go away, because it's obviously drawing up. I know there's never a good time or bad time, but it's kind of showing the fact that our country still has racially deeply divided roots. And how and when can it ever heal if people are taught hate throughout generations? And that's kind of the thing that gets me.
Well, that's why when you're talking about these parents taking these kids out, showing them how to shoot AK-47 and stuff, that's really counterproductive to what a civilized democracy is all about. Yes, the right says, everybody who's a gun owner says that they want to protect themselves. They have to protect themselves. If they believe in God, or if they believe in the Spirit, or if they believe in anything above themselves, they'll take care of it. Everything goes the way it's supposed to, the way it's planned. Why do people want to fight against the energy, the force that's in front of them? And these people are doing that with the possession of guns. You know, these TV shows or these movies that they have. Star Trek was very infamous for it, where the aliens would sense that the people, had guns or had the means to try to hurt them, and they would take them out. What was that one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Predator, good movie. It had that same theory behind it, where anybody who had a weapon was going to get destroyed by the aliens, and that's the way it is. Well, eye for an eye means if you kill me, I'm going to kill you, or vice versa. That's not.
I have a question for you, Don.
Yeah.
Obama was in office 8 years, and maybe the roots and the kindling fire of white supremacy groups was maybe flamed during those times, or they were resentful. But why now? Yeah, why now in 2017? I don't get it.
We have a president whose moniker is "Make America Great Again." That's inclusive in that is a assumption that we are no longer great or have become ungreat or whatever the case may be, and that's wrong. We are still great. We're still number one. We are still the country to beat or to emulate for everyone else in the world. That's why they're all coming here. So the assumption that you need to make America great again is completely wrong. So that's the
okay. Well,
you're talking about the assumptions that you're talking about is terrible because they're wrong.
When Donald Trump is appealing to those kinds of people that are hearing the message in a certain vein, he's appealing to people who are longing for some kind of bygone era when they felt like white people had more stature in society, they had more accessibility to jobs, they weren't being crowded out by minorities. And all these things are false claims. Like, they have this kind of perspective that they think there's only I was telling Albert earlier, they think there's only a fixed amount of jobs, a fixed amount of accessible housing, and that they're being shut out because of a different race or minority group or foreigner. And that's not the case. Everybody has, I'm not saying everyone has equal opportunity, but they have ample opportunity. I have plenty of friends who have only lived in America 10 years and are halfway to being a millionaire. So this is a certain centrist of a group, centrist. They're white Southerners primarily who feel disenfranchised from the system, and they find a hero in Donald Trump because his blatant outspokenness and his kind of his illusion to disqualifying Americans based on color, creed, and religion.
Right, but you have another problem in there, kind of a fallacious basis, is that money is the end all be all, and that's our problem. It's nothing. Money is nothing. It's only a piece of paper. We're talking about love, harmony, respect. Those are the things that we need to emphasize. So money, that is the cause, the root of all evil, whatever you want to call it. But that's our whole problem, is that we're everybody's running after money.
Well,
no one
I'm not the white guy in the South. Okay, I agree, and you said it on last week's show. If money is your sense of value and measurement and your barometer for fulfillment in life, you're in trouble. You or anybody, because, I mean, you meaning you and me, because at any day the economy could crash, people could be displaced from their jobs, they could be laid off, and it can't be the end-all and be-all by no means.
Exactly.
So, especially in places like in West Virginia where it's coal is the main industry, or places where people are subject to be laid off, in places where there was one major industry and then it folded. So people have to learn how to adapt. It is, in a sense, survival of the fittest. But with that, we've been on the air 1 hour and 15 minutes, and I'm going to do my conclusion, but I don't want to go first. So, Albert, why don't you go first?
No conclusion. I'm good.
Okay, Don, do you want to go before me?
Yeah, because
you're Ubering right now.
Exactly. And what I'm going to do, basically, I'm saying that I had a speech at one of our groups, advocates groups, Tuesday, and it was apparent that these white activist protesters don't have the faintest clue what they're doing. All this yelling and screaming and marching and all this stuff, it has its purpose to a point, and there's going to have to be additional strength that they're going to have to use. The whites who are doing the protest are going to have to develop in order to be more powerful, stronger. Hey, I'm Don.
Hey, Don. What's up? You're talking about the anti-Confederates?
I'm talking about the current protesters as they are right now, most active ones. They're the ones who are going to have to change, reconnoiter and change their method of protest to be a little more effective. We did get away with the ACA, change AHCA, but I don't think that that's going to last forever. So, my thing is that I would support everyone all the protesters looking at a deeper, more comprehensive form of protest in order to be effective. That's what I'm saying. That's my conclusion.
My conclusion is that these alt-right groups, now I read an article where Jeff Kessler was the organizer of the Charlottesville rally. They're highly organized. I'm going to put Don on mute while he takes his Uber ride. They're highly organized. They come into these towns that are symbolic, historically symbolic, and also meaningful for Southerners who recognize their history. And they try to create an atmosphere where they have territorial rights. Now, I disagree with Don in the sense that these anti-Confederate demonstrators need more direction because they're equally organizing in very specific ways. They're planning ahead to be counter-protesting these rallies, and they do know what they're doing. I was disappointed when I saw hand-to-hand competition between both of the group where they're going after each other hand over fist. There's no place for that. I believe in peaceful demonstrations. You cannot change somebody's extreme mind by engaging in that type of street violence. I don't care how frustrated the Ohio driver was with these counter-protesters. He had no right to randomly. He's a 20-year-old person. He's not like a senior citizen who one time in Santa Monica ran accidentally through a crowd. This person has no right to kill people for his beliefs. I wrote on Facebook today, I'll die for my beliefs, but I won't kill for my belief. And people have to get a grip. If they are confused about any sense of direction, it's what they intend to accomplish by these protests. Because not one side is going to convince the other. It's a completely different worldview. With that, I'm going to ask for any final words from somebody. I'm going to end the I'm putting Don Gallimore back on mute. Don, I'll see you August 30th. I'll be driving into Reno, and I'm going to end the show with one of John's songs. Goodbye, everybody.
Right,
Albert, did you have any final last words?
No, good night. Have a good night. Enjoy your week.
Yeah, let me know. Call me. I have some time tomorrow during the day if you want some help with that phone thing. Because I'm up here in Duluth. They used to have a program that people could get free phones through an Obama program. But I might have some ideas.
It's called Reach Out Wireless right here. It's called Reach Out Wireless, and they deliver free phones. But you gotta wait like 2 or 3 months, a couple of months before you get a food. Yeah.
Okay, well, phones are important nowadays, So with that, I'm going to end the show with one of John's songs. Have a great night, everybody.
We all need the hand of God reaching down.
I do have some final last words. The participants of this show is kind of like America. 50% of the people they don't even have their radar tuned in. And I'm talking about John and Ben, who enthusiastically told me they'd be calling the show tonight. Albert and Don have been more consistent lately. Last week we had an awesome show with an awesome guest. If people aren't committed, the show is not going to soar and go to new levels and reach new people. I'm disappointed, and I have a little bit of energy to put back into this game. With that, I'll say goodnight.